Pot of Gold. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Brett. I'm here with Mike. Special fun episode today. Special guest, friend of the program, Shea Dixon from Geauxld 24/7 will be joining us in just a few minutes. We figured we would do a little intro, lead into that, and, you know, Mike, what's up?
Oh, nothing much, man. Excited about this podcast with the GOAT, the greatest of all time, of Geauxld 24/7, not 247. I can't wait to battle him on that, or just kind of...
Yeah, we'll argue with the guy who works there and what it's called.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
But
yeah.
Look, guys, it's going to be a fun episode. We're going to do things a little different, try to have some fun in the middle, at the end, try to get a couple good stories out of him. So we're really excited. It's awesome that he wanted to jump on with us and do this. So, I mean, before we get into that, hit us up on Twitter at potofgold, potofgold@gmail.com, patreon.com/gold, Discord link in the show notes below.
You want to read the reviews?
Yeah, go for it.
So we're doing our intro. Usually we do... Brett plugs the Twitter. I kind of like to do the whole iTunes review. Guys, we got a flurry of reviews here coming in. So before we go into our segment with Shea Dixon, also know that we will get into a little La Tech preview.
We know you're waiting for
You're
it.
itching for some La Tech preview, especially coming off this Auburn win. So anyway, we last left you off with the review from Carolina Living. So we're going to move forward with Geauxld Moulet. I think it's Moulet.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I gave up on that.
5-star review. I've listened to every Tigers podcast there is, and hands down, this is the best one out there. They don't look at things through purple and gold glasses. I don't know. I'm going to stop there. Sometimes we do, but we appreciate the feedback. They call it like they see it. Honestly, it's like I'm sitting there with friends talking about LSU sports. Keep up the great work, guys. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next one, Spencer. A safe place for rational LSU ... I'm assuming it says fans. For some reason, iTunes won't let me read the title.
iTunes is the worst.
Really enjoy the recruiting news. The guys give solid information that I'm too lazy to go get myself. Perfect.
That's what we're here for.
MJ Copeland, everything I hoped for. This is the podcast I've always wished existed. It feels like hanging out with my old college friends because these are the exact, in all caps, conversations we would be having. I've also never left a review before, but after one of the guys, don't know y'all's names yet.
Mike.
That was me. Was sad about not having any reviews. I had to. I'm the one that was crying about the reviews. We appreciate it, MJ Copeland. Last one from Ouija. Best pod for LSU, greatest LSU podcast out there. I refresh daily, hoping to see a new pod like a Christmas present waiting for me under the tree. Keep it up, guys, and go Tigers. I like that.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for the kind reviews, the great reviews. It's just so awesome because the first thing we did when we started this podcast is we said we wanted to make it feel like people were just in the room talking with their buddies like everyone does. We did it for years before we bought microphones. And so it's just really cool to have people have the intended feeling. And we really appreciate the support, guys. There's also a Discord link below if you want to join in the chat. A lot of fun stuff going on in there, getting bigger every day. Yeah, I mean, La Tech, we're going to talk a little bit. We'll see what Shea wants to do.
We're going to mix things up. We're going to have some fun. We're definitely going to talk recruiting with Shea Dixon. As always, he is the greatest when it comes to recruiting information. So we'll definitely be mixing it up with him with a lot of different things. We want to talk about LSU football as well, not just the recruiting, but our current roster, our current team. Talk about kind of the first quarter of the season being over. And then maybe we get into some personal stuff with Shea. Talk about some Netflix, music, who knows. Should be an interesting segment, and we're about to dive into it. So, guys, sit back. I hope you enjoy it. All right, guys, here we are on the phone with Shea Dixon from Geauxld 247. Yes, we are saying 247. We just spoke with him about it. We got the go-ahead. We got the green light. It can go either way. Shea, we are here with Brett. I'm Mike. Happy to have you on board. First question, Mr. Jones or round here?
Round here, no doubt.
Man,
what about Omaha?
No doubt about it.
I'm a big Omaha guy.
I don't know.
Yeah, but then
Shea doesn't like it. Let's move on. Bail.
No. Whenever people, but it wasn't Counting Crows. Who did the Omaha World Series song?
OAR.
Back home in Omaha.
Was it OAR?
OAR.
Yep.
That's right. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
See, that got played out for me. But
Absolutely.
I like Omaha.
Speaking of played out, Imagine Dragons is just crushing the ESPN songs lately. We made fun of it in an episode a couple weeks ago. I can't stand it. They ruin these great songs. Counting Crows, guys, the reason we're talking about this, we heard it through the grapevine. Shea Dixon is a Counting Crows fan, so if people are just like, what the hell is going on right now? I thought we were talking recruiting. We just kind of want to throw a little curveball in there. Counting Crows songs get played out all the time. But I have to say, around here in Mr. Jones, classics can't go wrong.
Yes, August and everything after can't go wrong. Actually, I'll probably lose some followers or lose you guys some listeners here. But here's my hot take of the day is they announced this week the Super Bowl halftime show was Maroon 5. And, like, Twitter blew up making fun of Maroon 5, hating on them. I think that they've put out two of the better albums over the past few years of all these pop kind of bands. So I think I am the only person who was like, okay, I could rock with that.
Well, it's better than seeing Lady Gaga 10 more times, you know? I mean, it's a change-up.
Yeah, well, if it's not going to be like a Bruno Mars type of person, I'm fine with the Maroon 5. What is it? It's in Atlanta, so everybody wanted Outkast, which I could get behind.
Meek Mill.
Guess they couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, listen, let's
Great icebreaker, Mike. Good
It was
job.
good. We kind of crushed the ice there. Let's talk a little bit. Man, this first quarter of the season has been eye-opening to the negative Tigers, as some people like to put it. We are told we are more of the sunshine pumping crowd. We were never in the boat that we were going to be 6-6, but Brett and I were also skeptical that we were going to go 12-0 here. But the way things are looking, we're 3 wins away from our season win total. But I think that's going to be a scratch here. I think we're doing really good, especially coming off this Auburn victory. Shea, what can you say about the morale of this team right now, coming off of this big victory, and how it ties into the morale of the recruits, these guys that are paying attention to Ed Orgeron's program and the trajectory of it, and really just having this eye-opening national stage? How is that correlating with our success?
You know, I also didn't realize y'all were considered the Sunshine Pumpers. I thought, shout out to the Tiger Droppings crowd that follows. A lot of people listen to y'all on Go 247. But I think everyone describes y'all as like the realists, right? Like the
That's
kind of
what we
down the
thought.
middle, just being honest fans.
I mean, we are the realists, so yeah, you're right.
No, we really thought that too. We get in those arguments at times. I do have an alias on, we call it the Voldemort website. I'm sure you're aware of that. We don't really mention Tiger Droppings by name. I just screwed up there.
We'll do it for you, though.
Yeah, we'll do it for you, Shea. But I get on there and I kind of argue my case every now and then. I'm never going to give away my handle. But I let people know we've had podcasts where we absolutely dog the coaching staff. We dog certain guys that are on the team. I mean, and it's our inner fan kind of coming out. We are not paid by anybody to do this, and that's simply the point of this podcast, is just to get a realist perspective. But our realist take on this season was never a 6-6 season. If the chips fell in line where Ed Orgeron really had them lined up to go with the recruiting class, with Joe Burrow, with Cole Tracy, with Dave Aranda staying home, I mean, there could be great things ahead. And we kept saying that, and it's looking like it's going in that direction.
Everything's come up roses so far. I mean, between the Cole Tracy addition and hiring a full-time special teams coordinator and keeping Aranda, and it's early, right? But they look like a better team than last year, and last year's team won 9 games, should have won 10 games, so potentially, more than that. So, yeah, I think I was never in the – I think I picked them this year to win 10 games, but I also was probably drinking a little bit of the off-season Kool-Aid there. But all is well. But look, roundabout, I'll go back to your question. With recruiting, how does starting out 3-0 and certainly beating 2 top 10 teams translate? And I've said this before. I've never bought into the logic or the line of thinking, I should say, where kids live and die on a game or 2 games or the entire season for that matter. I think I've always said that I don't believe like momentum in a game is as real of a thing as it is in recruiting. I think in recruiting it's a little more tangible, and if you're doing well and trending in the right direction, you have things you can pitch to kids who normally these past 4 years, maybe more than that, they haven't been able to say, look, we're a winning program, and then all these other things. They've been able to pitch, hey, look, we're on the rise. You're the type of player that could turn it around for us, whatever the line of, the selling point might be. So I think if they continue this, they'll be able to sell that they're in a different spot. They're competing for the SEC West again for the first time since 2011, that they're in the national conversation potentially in November. I think that will certainly carry weight with recruits, but I've never bought into, because they beat Auburn, Geauxld and Roy committed. And I don't think that was the case. I think that they've got some momentum right now, and a Baton Rouge kid sees it. And I think he was already leaning towards LSU, and it was just a good time for him to shut things down. And that's my kind of 2 cents, and I could be wrong, but just doing this for a decade now, I don't think kids are as invested as we are, and by we I mean the fans and you guys who do a podcast and kind of know the teams in and outs, or the media. And I always say this, and I think it's true, that I could have polled the 22 kids they signed last year, 23, I got 23 kids, and I would bet 50% of them actually knew what the record was and what games were wins and losses, and the others probably would be a game or two off. And I think that's just because these kids aren't paying attention to that as much as they are, how are you using guys, who am I going to be teammates with, what does a recruiting class look like, how good of a relationship do I have with my position coach. I think all of those things matter a little more than the difference between if you won 8 games or if you won 10 games.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can also put that on every game's on TV now. It's not like you have to go to Florida State or Texas to be on national television anymore. And so I think that could definitely tie into it. But I mean, you're right. These kids don't really care as much about, oh no, they lost to Georgia last year, I don't want to go there. It's more of a, oh well, they're moving in the right direction, I love the coaches and stuff like that. It's all about, and Ed's big thing has been building the culture. I mean, it's one of the biggest things that's happened under Ed as head coach, is there's been a big culture change, and we're going to start seeing that with recruits, I would assume.
Yes, I definitely think that's a good point. He sells, much like Les did, he sells the family atmosphere. And when they come on these visits, I talk to parents all the time who say that the feeling they get when they're around LSU staff and the support staff and everyone who sort of makes those 3 days of an official visit go is just different than it is everywhere else. It's more laid back. It's more of a family feel. And I think that's credit. I think it's a cultural thing, Louisiana, South Louisiana thing. And I also think it's just how Les and Orgeron both structured their program. They really put a lot into recruiting and understanding what these parents want. And O's been around the block enough times to know that when you get these kids on campus with, whether it be their parents or grandparents or whoever is sort of a parental figure in their life, they want to feel comfortable leaving that kid there for 4 years.
Right.
And a lot of trust goes into that. And I think because of how well they do really balancing between team and school and being a student athlete and being part of a family dynamic, I think is something that pays dividends probably more often than people even realize.
Right. And you talked about feeling comfortable, and you mentioned the big defensive tackle from U High, Jay Roy. I say Jay Roy. I like the nickname there. We're going to stick with that.
And you don't know how to say his name.
Well, some people say it differently, but we're going to let the kid become famous first before we all jump on it. Just like you said, we both go back and forth, Giles and Giles. We're still screwing that up, even though the kid's playing for LSU now. But anyway, Jay Roy, a big defensive tackle out of U High. U High is just blowing up. They've always been a pretty dominant program in the Baton Rouge area, having 1 or 2 guys here or there every couple of years. But it seems like lately they are just loaded. But I guess you can really say that about a lot of the Baton Rouge schools lately, with Southern Lab, U High, Dunham having the #1 player in the country. I mean, it's big to keep a guy home, especially when most people automatically assume, oh, well, he goes to school basically on campus. Why can't he go to LSU? Why don't these kids want to go here? And I think what's overlooked is a lot of these kids grow up on campus. That's the exact reason they don't want to go there. They want a little change of pace, a little change of the atmosphere. And to get a kid like this, especially at defensive tackle, where Ed is really focused on building those trenches, and that's never going to go away. It's not like his focus is building the trenches and then, a couple years later we'll get back to it. It's an every year thing he wants to establish. So to get a kid in Baton Rouge, basically on campus, to commit mid-season, it speaks volumes to the momentum like you talked about. What can you tell us about this kid that just committed?
Yeah, and I would bet most of the listeners know, like when you say U High's on campus, like it is literally on campus. It is in the, kind of right in the middle of campus, right there across from the Law Center. So And I know people don't always believe this. I know everyone got caught up in the Dylan Moses thing, and people thought when he went to IMG for a year that actually might help because he might, miss home or at least have that year away to feel out what it was like. But I do think what you're saying is true. I think a lot of these kids say, hey, I've already been on this campus for 4 years, some of them more than that, and do I want to stay there? Do I want to go out and try something new? And sometimes that does work against LSU, but Roy getting on board was huge. And a lot of people, look, their senior class at U High probably has double-digit easy guys who are going to play, whether it's Power 5, Group of 5, who are going to play D1 football somewhere. Most of them are already committed to do so or have offers to get on board with the program. And for them to dip into the junior class because they don't have any guys committed out of that senior class, for them to get into that junior class and take what a lot of people think is one of U High's better players, regardless of age, was big. And as you said, when you toss in, it's in the trenches. He's a defensive tackle who has the ability to play really inside out, much like Bahoko has. I think it's a huge addition. And for a long time, for his opening stretch of high school, Roy was getting by on just being bigger than everybody else, and he was athletic, and that was enough. And now he's really started to put a focus onto his technique and his pad level and understanding what it takes to eventually make that transition from high school football player to SEC football player. And that's something the LSU staff's certainly been impressed by. I think it's shown with his start to his junior year at U High. And make no mistake about it, in the spring, in the summer, he was on A&M's campus, Bama's campus, and those schools were pushing to get him committed. That would have been a big commitment for them to go into U High again and grab a guy, and he had ample opportunity to commit to those schools and didn't, and then kind of showed up around LSU a bunch over the past month, 2 months, kind of watching practices and stuff like that, and it ultimately led to him after the Auburn game saying, look, I've always been an LSU fan. I've wanted to go there. I'm going to go ahead and jump on the opportunity, and now they've got 4 commits, a top 10 class, and certainly trending in the right direction for 2020 after a really good start to 2019 where they've always been in the top 10 from jump and are kind of inching closer, one commitment away from having 20 guys on board.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I know Mike has a laundry list of recruiting questions he's going to ask you.
I'm going to back away from the mic for a second.
I want to bring it back to, this LSU team, and we kind of talked about it already, culture. And a lot of the people, who were very anti-Ed Orgeron from the start, all it was, he's just a PR machine. All he is a hype machine. So I'm kind of curious, someone from your perspective who's been in every type of conference and all this stuff, what is the difference in that maybe media relations, public relations type of thing in the Ed Orgeron tenure versus the Les Miles tenure?
I get people all the time on the board guessing one way or the other about, is Ed, stricter? Is he not letting anything out, or is he more the type to kind of want everything out there? And for me, and I'm being completely honest, I don't see a major difference. Les never really shut down kind of the assistants from being able to, get out on the road, do recruiting, but still that message be out there of kind of their pecking order or who they were after or whatever it might be. And Orgeron's been that same way. Now, I think a lot of that under Les had to do with Frank Wilson. I don't think Les was very cognizant of kind of what was being said out there one way or the other, and Frank very much kept his ear to the ground in terms of the mood of the program and recruiting certainly and everything that falls in line with that. And Frank's from the Ed Orgeron school of coaching. They were together at Tennessee. They were together at Ole Miss when Meat Market came out, and Bruce Feldman wrote the book about Orgeron and his recruiting tactics and Frank Wilson being his right-hand man and everything in Oxford. And I saw, or now getting to know Orgeron more and more, I see kind of a lot that Frank pulled from that. And he's very, certainly media savvy, but I don't think he blocks out the noise well. I think he could care less, truly, if people were saying positive things or negative, but I also think he understands that he doesn't have the same leash that Les had, certainly not kind of during the middle of his tenure, and he'd won a national championship already, and even if they were playing poorly, they weren't going to fire him.
Sure.
And Orgeron is on a shorter leash. He knows that yes, he needs to have a positive perception of the program out there, and I think he tries to make sure that he gets along with the media well, that we have way more open access now in terms of being able to watch practice. And people will remember in fall camp, we would always get shut out in the Miles era halfway through because they would say, okay, look, we're really focusing on game planning stuff now. I don't want it
didn't want
out
any
there.
of that offense to leak for sure.
Right, yeah, when it would look the same every year. It was, if you wanted to see what the offense looked like, you could just go watch the 12 games from the year before, and it would be the same thing.
Right.
And whether it was Canada or Insminger now, Orgeron's never done that. And for the first time, we get to go to actual practices during the year, and it's different at all schools. USC is insane. Southern Cal, they allow media to come to all 3 hours of practice. There is nothing that happens that you can't see. I don't know if I see the kind of the validity in that. I don't know if I would want everybody watching all 3 hours of my practice, but Orgeron gives us 30, 35 minutes a day, and you get to see the team through the week. And I know most of the time it's individual periods, so it's kind of a role, checking role almost, and who's practicing, who's not, who's still banged up. But more than anything, that's kind of some of the info that you wouldn't want out there, and he has no problem being brutally honest with it. I think recruiting, certainly Orgeron pays closer attention than Miles did. That was very much Frank Wilson's line of duty. But in terms of just being honest, people can probably be quick to forget, but Les would never say anything. If you said, is a guy hurt, he would say he's nicked, and his leg could be falling off. And
he has a contusion that's similar to a disease. Yeah, it was always some bullshit answer, yes.
But that's to the benefit of Ed Orgeron. As far as opening practice and being honest, I feel like Ed was kind of not forced to do that, but he wanted to do something that we weren't used to, and he wants people to know we are throwing the football now. Like we do have dudes out here that can catch, that can throw the football like Joe Burrow, and I think it benefits his idea of the direction of this program if he allows you guys out there and to promote that and say, actually, we're practicing these roping the sidelines catches with Jerry Sullivan and D. Anderson catching the ball just out of bounds. And look what happened a week before. A couple days ago at Auburn, that catch on third down to extend the drive got us into field goal range because we're working on those things where before we didn't know what we're working on. We didn't know we could throw the football like that. And now it's exciting to see, and Ed's opening that up. You talked about having the pressure that Ed has and the short leash. He had to go out and find guys that can play immediately and win immediately for him. You look at Joe Burrow, you look at Cole Tracy, Geauxld, Fehoko, guys that he reached out and are really dependable and reliable on every level. But out of that group, or out of the group that we have here on campus at LSU, who is Mr. Reliable, the unsung hero? In other words, who is the Ammart Cajun turkey sandwich of this LSU football team?
Of anyone, or just the guys he brought in as kind of, whether it was transfer or whatever?
Let's go with the transfers.
Burrow is up there. You see that, though. For him to come in, and it wasn't easy for him to join a quarterback room where everybody was already friends with the guys who were on the team. There was a lot of the team who wanted Justin McMillan to be the quarterback, or the younger guys who were buddies with Miles Brennan, and the same goes for Lowell. Nobody knew Joe Burrow. He was this guy that just showed up, in the summer, and all of a sudden was supposed to be part of the team. And I know Orgeron says, look, we take JUCO guys all the time, other positions, and it's never an issue, or transfers or whatever it might be. But quarterback's different, at least in my mind, because only one of them's playing, and you see the result. If you choose the guy who comes in, guys are going to leave, and that happened. But for him to win over the team like he did, and I knew, kind of talking to Ohio State people and talking to people in Joe's family, that Joe wasn't the type to come in and expect anybody to like him, or B, come in and start bossing people around or saying, look, I'm a baller, you guys don't know, none of that. And from talking to Joe, it's almost like he didn't even say anything for 2 months. And he just came in June and July and worked and worked and worked. And everybody at Ohio State told me this kid is going to be the hardest worker on the team. He is going to be a beast in the weight room. He is going to be the guy organizing all the 7-on-7 stuff during the summer when the coaches can't be around. And he's going to watch film until basically his retina's burn out. And all that's been the case. And we've heard that from teammates. We've heard Orgeron say that, look, he showed up to conditioning tests and was beating everybody in 110s. And he laid that down. And from talking to guys this week, I asked Garrett Brumfield and Nick Brissett and some other guys who've been around the team forever, what was that like from then to now? And Brumfield said, look, Joe's my guy because he came in here and didn't let any of the outside noise affect him, and he won the team over by working and not by talking. And when they see that, and then when they see him strap it up and put it on the line and not slide or take him to 3-0 or whatever it might be, they get, hey, look, at the end of the day, we want to win. And he's our best chance to win. He wants to win. Everybody's on the same team, pulling in the same direction. That's always been a motto of Ed Orgeron's, is that everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction. And I think Burrow really fits that. So and I think Bahoko's that guy on the defensive side, but of the newcomers, I think he's the most important. And I think that it probably couldn't have gone better for him in terms of blending into the team without causing massive waves.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that we weren't anticipating with Joe Burrow coming in is how good of a leader. We kind of thought, this dude's probably got a good arm. Ohio State has as good a quarterback room as there is ever anywhere. And just the fact that so many of these guys are just loving Joe Burrow, I think that's the extra little thing.
Keep going.
But I was just going to try to transition it into the running backs real quick because this is the first year in a while we haven't really known who the running back is going to be. And from our perspective, and maybe you have a little bit different, but all we heard all offseason was like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Hilaire's the guy, and Brissett was just kind of an afterthought. And then all of a sudden, game 1 against Miami, he's our featured back.
Well, and I've got a little bit something to say about that as well. And we talked about it on our storyboard bonus pod. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I think that is about is Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of fit the mold of what we were used to seeing the offense be, kind of that downhill, that more power, pro-style running formation. He kind of fit that with his running style and his size, where Brissett just feeds off the zone. He feeds off the spread them out, bigger splits, zone offense, running through, reading the gaps. And whenever we see that now against Miami and Auburn, you can see the difference there where Brissett is feeding off of that zone play, where Helaire is more of that, hey, give me the ball quick, I'm going to hit the hole. Maybe that has something to do with the emergence of Brissett. Maybe not. What do you see, Shea?
I think that's, if we're just talking football terminology of what we've seen, I think that's the most accurate statement in terms of Brissett making that leap. He's a zone runner, and all we heard was that he was a patient runner, and he waits for it to open and he hits it. And we've seen that, and he's obviously done well. I couldn't have been more wrong because I thought that Chris Curry would eventually pass up Nick Brissett, and I thought Edwards-Helaire would be, I knew it would be kind of a committee, but I thought he would be the feature, quote-unquote feature back. And it's completely turned the other way around. It's been Edwards-Helaire second, Chris Curry's barely playing, and obviously Brissett is the guy. And I had heard, and I try to mix it between, okay, what am I hearing from sources, and then what do I just kind of feel from what we've seen. And last year, over the years we've seen Brissett, when he got a chance, he fumbled it a couple of times. Yep. He never got another opportunity. He wasn't going to be Geis. Darrell Williams sort of, and maybe we're seeing a bit of that with Nick Brissett. Like Darrell Williams became like a different player his senior year, and all of a sudden was a baller. I mean, you could rely on him, and had they not had Geis, he could have been a guy you leaned on for 20-something touches a game, and he would have been fine. He was in great shape. And the one thing I heard about Brissett in the summer was he was in great shape. And he would have little flashes here and there in the spring and into summer workouts and into fall camp where they'd say, damn, that looks like the guy who owns a lot of Louisiana high school's rushing records coming out of U-High. But I didn't ever think he would turn that corner. And I think, credit to Nick, he's done it. And He's had a couple of 100-yard games. I think that rushing for 70 against Auburn is maybe more impressive than both his 100-yard games.
Yeah.
Just because he helped them out in a big way on last weekend. But I think one thing that kind of to wrap up that thought is that I asked Burrow. I said, were we just missing the boat on Nick Brissett, or is he better than you anticipated or that we anticipated? And he said, Nick is playing with his hair on fire right now. He said, I didn't see any of this in the summer, and we saw flashes, but all of a sudden he's consistently doing it. And now that they've gone through 3 games and 2 top 10 teams, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me that Miami and Auburn are terrible defenses or anything like that. I mean, so much of last year they would win games and people would say, well, those teams sucked anyways. I don't think that's the case with Miami and Auburn. I definitely don't think that's the case with Auburn.
Right.
So for him to find success in those games, I think that means he's here to stay. And Orgeron said this week he is the premier back. He's earned it. He's going to get those touches. And I have reason to believe what Burrow said is that the lights come on to him for him, and probably for like most athletes and certainly football players, he's gained a good amount of confidence out of those 3 weeks that have allowed him now to just forget. Don't think about fumbling it. Don't think about, am I going to get benched? And just go out there and do your job.
Yeah, with the running backs, LSU is always littered with running backs because of where we are geographically. Louisiana is loaded with defensive backs and running backs. I mean, it happens every year. Some people would point the finger of, where was our next big Fournette? And, some people could argue, well, he's playing linebacker. His name's Devin White, but we do have Brissett here. But this next class, the recruiting class right now, Ty Davis is in state along with Emory. Obviously, Emory's committed to Georgia, and that'll be a battle to the end. From the outside looking in, we're assuming we're going to continue to recruit the hell out of Emory. Noah Cain is another guy that's always in the mix. Where do you see this running back class finishing out? I know you get asked that over and over again because that's kind of the popular question this year. And maybe it's just we're kind of in that lull period where there's not really any more news on that front, and it's going to probably heat up after the season's over. But if you could predict a finish for this running back group, who would it be? Are we going to take 3? And if we are going to take 3, is it those 3? If not, who would be the next group coming up? And then to double up on that question, is it fair to say that Cardell Thomas and Ty Davis, are they in the same boat as Lael Collins and Jeremy Hill as far as comparisons go with teammates?
I think that, I guess I'll go running back first. I like Ty Davis a lot. I think we have him ranked as the number 6 back on 24/7.
And I agree.
He's a man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people, and that happens when a kid commits early and he's from here. You kind of, you're always focused on who do you need to get next, and you're not really putting incredible thought into who you already have. But he's a beast, and he will be a very good college running back, great size, and still has athleticism for his size. So I have no doubt that in a year where they had to flip the running back room, I mean, Brissett is going to be gone. Leonard Fournette, isn't playing a ton, obviously, and then you're down to Edwards-Helaire and Curry and Province, two of which aren't even playing. Curry and Province don't really play. So you got to flip the room. You've got to get back to where you were with a dynamic running back, and Davis is that. But I've said all along, and I believe this to be the case, and I know this is how the staff thinks, they need 2 elite backs, or they need Davis, and then they need to get 2 more backs who can play at the SEC level and have a chance to up that level of play to match what LSU's used to. And in my mind, Emory is the elite back. In addition to Davis. And I don't know if they can get him to flip. I think that he's been confident in wanting to leave the state, and it was Mississippi State for a little while, and then Georgia came into the picture, and they're winning, right? So, He's been very kind of enthusiastic, him and his dad both, about the commitment to Georgia, and I don't know if they'll be able to flip him. Now, if LSU's 12-0 or something, and they're playing great, and the dynamic changes.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm going to guess they don't flip him. That doesn't mean that they can't
right.
or that they are going to stop recruiting him. I just don't see it, at least from where even right now. Move on to Noah Cain, and I think you mentioned another name too, Trey Sanders, who is going to make a visit. Number one running back, the only running back rated higher than Emory, is Noah Cain's teammate. And both those guys are looking at LSU. I think Cain's probably been obviously the more realistic option. He's from Baton Rouge. He's been on campus a million times. So I think that they're recruiting both of them heavily, and they're going to get both in for official visits. And I think both belong in the conversation as guys who are potential options. And then you move into this group of guys who are either have offers already or could get offers. And if things don't work out with Emory, or you don't think you're going to get Trey Sanders, or things look cloudy with Cain, you can move on to these guys and maybe take one or two of them and then say, hey, look, maybe one of them will break through and you have him and Davis. And one guy who I just keep coming back to is Mike Hollins at U High. And he's one of the better backs in the country. I mean, he's a top 50 running back across the recruiting services. He goes to school on campus. He has big offers. He wants to play at LSU. I think he probably commits to a Virginia or an SMU or kind of a mid-level school and gets his spot, which is not uncommon. And it's going to be even more common now with the early signing period and classes filling up earlier and earlier. So I still think that come December, if they reevaluate their running back board and don't think that they're going to flip Emory or don't think that they can get an IMG running back, that Mike Hollins is sitting front and center waiting on an offer. And he's played great to start his senior year. I don't see that slowing down. He's the bell cow and makes U High's offense really go. So for all those reasons, and the fact that he's simply talented, I just think that there's a chance we see him wind up in the class. But whether it's 2 or 3, they're going to add more running backs because they can't afford to only sign Tyrone Davis. You have to find a way to get 1 or 2 more guys into the fold.
So what about the Jeremy Hill, La'el Collins, Cardell Thomas, Ty Davis comparison? Has that been talked about?
Yeah, well, for sure, given that they're teammates and they're from Baton Rouge, and certainly they're the best O-line running back combo to come out of the city since then for guys who are the same age. I think La'el was an offensive tackle coming out of high school. Obviously, he's probably best suited at guard at the NFL level, or at least with the Cowboys. He's played his best ball at guard. But I think that Jeremy Hill is a good comparison for Ty Davis.
For sure.
I don't think that Cardell is as dynamic of an athlete as La'el was for his size. Cardell is a physical specimen. If he gets his hands on you, it's over.
Yeah.
He plays dominant in a phone booth, and he's a pure guard all the way.
Can you imagine being in a phone booth with Cardell Thomas? That image just popped in my head. I'm going to die.
Right. I think more than anything, I don't think Cardell's a guy that comes in next year and starts, but I also don't think he has to because they've got Damian Lewis back. Chasen Hines looks like a beast against Auburn in the minimum amount of snaps we saw. We'll see what Charles and Deckios might be the right tackle again next year. And you can move McGee inside or vice versa. So I mean they've got options. You don't want to have these freshmen starting if you don't have to. And I think that will give Cardell time to get in a college strength program, trim up his weight some, and as that comes along, he'll get a little bit more and more athletic and be better and better as a pass pro guy, and we've seen Damian Lewis, who is a junior and, a beast. He still struggles in pass pro. It's that much different when you're, making the jump from high school or JUCO to college. And that's with everybody. It doesn't really matter if you're a 5-star or 3-star or whatever it might be. But I really like Cardell as a guard. I think he's a pure guard. And I think he's going to develop into probably one of the more physical offensive linemen LSU signed in recent years. But I also just don't think he has to play right away, maybe as early as they needed La'el.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Look, Shea Dixon, Go247 joining us. We're going to mix it up, have a little bit more fun. I was trying to figure out how I was going to transition into getting a good Ross Dellinger story out of you. And then, of course, I checked Twitter, and he's out at Cole Tracy's family's house checking out the new bar and stuff like that. And I just figured since, y'all were probably drinking buddies up in the press box, and we're not in yet to join you. I figured you might have a good Ross Dellinger story for the people, which Ross is almost as loved as you in the LSU fan. Not as much.
Well, Ross is that true journalist, right? He brought the good, the bad, the ugly. He was going to tell it and find it out, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad he went to Sports Illustrated and is kind of living that out. But Ross is first off to be very stupid sometimes with how transparent he is with things. And I remember when he live tweeted that he was peeing next to Tom Cruise in the press box bathroom. So in Tiger Stadium, the press box is like 30-yard to 30-yard line, and then all the suites are like on the level below or then to the left and right of the press box. So Tom Cruise, I think he was in Oliva's press box at the time. That would make sense at least. And so, but we share the same bathrooms. So he goes into the bathroom and strikes up this conversation with Tom Cruise about the game, and I believe Tom Cruise said it was his first ever college football game to go to, and he gets all this info and then live tweets it and says, I was just peeing next to, I think he first tweeted, going to the bathroom, Tom Cruise is in here. Peeing next to Tom Cruise.
I remember that.
Then he just quote tweets everything that they talked about, with everybody knowing that they had just talked about it at the urinal. No shame, doesn't care. And I think that's one thing I like about Daly the most. But one of my favorite memories certainly is his chance to not only meet Tom Cruise but pee next to him and talk about college football.
Fun fact: last year for the A&M game, we snuck out some press passes for that one. So we were actually up there roaming around. No one really knew who we were just yet, or our pictures were out or anything like that. But I actually peed next to Jordan Rodgers. So that's a cool little fun fact for Pot of Gold guys. Not as cool as Tom Cruise. Rodgers is kind of, I don't know. I'm not.
He's good looking.
I guess. I mean, he thinks he is.
I mean,
it's very obvious he thinks he is. But yeah, that was a fun fact.
Is that more? Are you more proud of his college football prowess, his bachelor prowess, or his
just his swag, man? His prowess, his prowess walking around the press box, man. I mean, he just shied away from the hot dogs. He eats healthy. I mean, he's a great guy.
It's a hard act to follow when Jesse Palmer was there before you.
He did not wash his hands.
Oh shit. We're going to tweet that out.
That's the inside scoop we're here for.
Look, Shea, it's been awesome you're hanging out with us. I figured we would do one more little fun thing. As we were texting earlier, subtle brag, Shea and I now are text friends, which was a terrible idea by you. I'm going to be pestering the shit out of you.
He's lying.
That's more than fine.
So we thought it'd be something a little different, a little fun to do. I love when there's player comps, and it's always comparing players to other players. So I figured let's take some of your favorite shows and stuff you do outside of LSU and try to get you to tie it in with maybe some player comps. And we share a wonderful, beautiful love for Arrested Development. So I figured let's just start off hot with like Tobias Funke. Give me maybe a star ranking or a player comp for what he brings to Arrested Development.
Oh man, okay, star ranking for Tobias would certainly be 5-star, right?
Okay, I was about to get pissed if you were going to say 3.
Yeah, well, that would be the other argument, like 3-star with like a ton of upside.
See, that's what I was about to say. I thought Tobias might be a 3.
Maybe.
Yeah, 5-star all the way. Almost in times carries the show beyond just the writing. I tried, when you asked me earlier, you said, have you ever made a player comp to some funny shows? And the first one that came to mind was Tobias. And I have racked my brain, like, who could even possibly compare to Tobias?
So one of my favorite ones, I was like, okay, Job Bloof. For Job, I thought Craig Lawson was like a perfect one because just talent through the roof, but maybe not every time. You know, there was a lot of times Craig Lawson, we were like, man, this dude has so much more potential. He's just okay. He's really good. And I kind of feel like that's how Job was. You get home runs, but every now and then you're just like, what's Job up to?
Well, what was your Funke, Shea?
Oh, man. Okay, well, then I guess we would need two to think of. Okay, so I like that Job one. Is Tobias like a sneaky, is he really the 3-star type who plays way above his level, or is he just a true 5-star?
I think he is. Look at his wife.
He might be Tyrann Mathieu.
No way.
That's a great one.
He loves it.
No. Actually, I get it.
Shea and I are going to be best friends.
No, I get it. No, I get it. But if anyone paid
I was
attention to
gonna-
St. Aug High School, they knew this guy was going to be a stud. So you got to pay attention. But if you pay attention to Tobias, he is a stud. Look at his
He's
wife.
a doctor.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I would say also that Tobias is kind of like is almost like a Russell Shepard type, right?
like it.
Who is he's your leader, the most outspoken one, but then everyone doesn't really know how to use him. Like his jobs never work out for him. Now obviously Russell went on to an NFL career, but maybe in that light that Tobias could never lock down a job, but you knew he had the talent. And Russell was the same way, is that he was just completely lost here.
Is Buster just, your two-star guy that remains a two-star guy, like a
long snapper?
Yeah, he's a long snapper. He's a Joey Crapel.
Yes, and who the only person, like his biggest fans, like his mom. And,
Right, or like the high school.
Wears his jersey all the time, but nobody else even cares about him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that guy's from my high school. He's a long snapper.
He's got a sweet Letterman jacket.
He'll play as a senior.
He'll play as a senior. If his last name is Ferguson, nobody cares.
Exactly. I think my favorite character of all of Arrested Development, it might be Lucille #1, Lucille Bluth. Do you have one for her?
Oh, man. She is my favorite character on Arrested Development.
We're
Who would
best
be
friends.
just the bitch on Arrested? Who would be the bitch of LSU football?
Damn, I don't know.
You know who it would be? I would go Foster Morrow.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
A little bit of
he
class.
doesn't- Yeah, he's from Geauxld. He's kind of the pretty boy and everything. But if you actually know him, he is the one who, no holds barred, takes no prisoners. I like that comp a little bit, but boy, that's a tough one. But yes, Lucille won. Personally, for me, I don't know. All of the main characters, she's probably my favorite with Tobias.
You can make an argument for all of
I
them.
usually think that all these sub characters on Arrested Development ultimately outweighed everybody who was on the show like all the time. Like the cameos were the best.
Yeah, I mean, somehow I just blanked on his real name, the guy from Ozarks.
Jason
and
Bateman.
Jason Bateman.
He's a 5-star in everything he does.
And somehow Bateman is like your like 4th or 5th best like favorite person on that show. It's such a good show.
Yeah, Jason Bateman would be like the Nick Brissett of the team. He's kind of in a way he's keeping them together right now. But you kind of what you see is what you get with him.
Yeah, I was
so
trying
a 4-star.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with like a backup quarterback, maybe like a Jarrett Lee that got thrown into the heat a little too soon.
But he's always kind of just steady.
But he's consistent.
But
yeah.
he could be better. But we just kind of screwed it.
Jarrett
there.
Lee is like the Fitzpatrick of the college football. I feel like sometimes he would look so good, and sometimes you're like, that was 7 picks this game.
Yeah, you got your stomach kind of turns a little bit, but you're like, you still think it's gonna happen. It's gonna be okay. I don't know. We kind of got crazy here.
I wanted to use Justin Jefferson, like the younger brother of the family.
Okay.
The rest were outcasts. Like that's very Arrested Development, but I don't know who he would be. Would he be?
Well, see, that's okay. We brought this up with Justin Jefferson. He does not pass the eye test. He like does not look like he's gonna be good. But
and he's awesome.
He's like our best receiver, and I don't get it. It's like we watch hours of football. I've watched years of LSU football. I haven't missed a play in, I don't know, maybe since I was 10. But I've never seen a receiver come in that you're just kind of like, yeah, I mean, he might play as a senior. Same with Russell Gage, I guess. We're just like, nah, he doesn't look good. But like, keep him on the field, man. The separation this kid gets, his hands, his playmaking ability, his hair is a little off. But, that's another story. But he's a guy that you can kind of dress up and maybe look the part one day. So Arrested Development character for Jefferson, I don't know. Y'all are more the development guys.
Maybe Funke?
Maybe?
Funke? I don't know, man. This is hard. Whenever Shea and I were talking, I just spent like 4 hours at work like drawing out maps of like looking at old recruiting classes and who can we tie this person into.
Oh, why am I blanking? What is Michael's son's name? Why am I blanking on it?
George Michael.
George Michael.
George Michael. Yeah, maybe he's a George Michael, right? Like
I like it.
The youngest one and we obviously know that he goes on to a famous acting career, and that was kind of his.
And a great app in Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, I'll say this on Justin Jefferson, not to take away from our fun pop culture references, that when Jerry Sullivan got here, and the passing game coordinator, helping out the wide receivers, obviously, but he, from 30 years in the NFL, you weren't going to play if you weren't the most technically sound, who knew how to block, who was running perfect routes. And I remember it didn't take someone told me this was probably through a week or two of spring ball. And he said that Justin Jefferson's the best player on the team, the best receiver on the team. And then the next best is probably 6 rungs below that to get to the rest.
Wow.
He was so confident that Justin Jefferson was so much better than everybody else that I bought into that a lot throughout the off season, saying, look, I know nobody believes it, but Justin Jefferson's going to be a beast. He's going to be the guy. And I think a lot of that, too, is Burrow said when he got here, Justin was the one guy who was like, hey, you want to work? You want to work? You want to go throw? You want to go throw? And they've built that rapport. But in terms of route running, hands, separation, he is a ball. I mean, he's a baller.
Yeah.
And he's only a sophomore. And he didn't play a ton last year. But, golly, look, we're far enough removed now that we can kind of laugh about it. But 3 sons in the family, all 3 of them playing different positions in the SEC for one school, including a starting quarterback, is an impressive family tree.
It doesn't get enough praise. It really doesn't.
No. And I think he's got, it's fair to say, he has a chance to be the best of all 3.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Look, we're going to do one more before we get out because we bonded over this character.
Wait.
But go for it, Mike.
Is Jerry Sullivan Frank Costanza? Me and Brett talk about Frank Costanza being Jerry Sullivan. It just seems like the guy that's just always in George's hair. But, man, he's just detail-oriented, just always harping on the small things and always just about to explode at any second. Plus, he's old and he wears sunglasses in the booth.
1,000,000% he is the George Costanza. There is no better comp than Jerry Sullivan for George Costanza. He is all about the details. I think that the receivers half the time hate him just because he's nonstop in their hair about everything. I think he said one comment, I don't remember who it was to, but in fall camp, a receiver ran her out, and he said it all looks perfect until you started, like when you got off the line. So, literally from the second you started moving, it was terrible. So he is the most detail-oriented person, and I joke that the receivers hate him. I think that they just know that he rides their ass nonstop. But,
and it shows. And it shows on the field.
And it shows on the field. I think certainly this is probably – and, look, granted, nobody's been pissed off more about the drops than him. That kind of stuff keeps him up at night. But I think that we are at least seeing a wide receiver group that's going to be technically sound and good because they're finally leaning on him. They're not having to only block anymore. They're actually getting the ball thrown to him a good bit. And if they can hold on to it, I think he'll trust them more and more.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, last one, Curb Your Enthusiasm. It kind of goes in with the Costanza thing. Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of the best shows ever made. We got to do a player comp for the best character, Leon Black.
Did you have one before I guess mine?
So the thing about this one is it's easy to say somebody like a Rashawn Gary, just that, #1 5-star player. But
Rashard Lawrence?
No, well, I just, Gary from Michigan.
Okay, I didn't know if we were sticking with LSU.
We
Sorry,
can.
man. Just
Leonard
go.
Fournette. Sorry, Mike. Excuse me. But this is a guy who came in and, maybe season later on didn't start from the beginning. So I don't know if we have to look at a JUCO type of thing for this. I don't know. I was curious what you were going to say.
I was going to go with Brandon LaFell, and this is
JoJo.
a deep cut because when Brandon LaFell signed, he was the 3-star that was just friends with R.J. Jackson, and they really wanted R.J. Jackson, and so they took Brandon LaFell, and then obviously LaFell ended up being like the baller, and R.J. Jackson didn't pan out to obviously what people thought he was coming out of high school. But I think that when Leon shows up on Curb and Larry David's like, were you a part of were you in the hurricane? And she's like, oh, no, he lives in L.A. He's just here. I think that was like Brandon LaFell when he showed up. Everyone was like, who are you? And he's like, I'm RJ's friend. I'm part of the signing class. I promise. I'm on scholarship. And,
that's gold, Jay.
Develops to what's the best player, one of the best players on the team, certainly. And Leon between Joe Pepitone and everything else developed into probably one of my favorite TV characters ever.
It's the best.
Shea, listen, man, we're approaching an hour here. I think we've had a lot of fun. We've had a blast doing this. Thank you so much for being on with us. Do you have any last words before we get the heck out of here?
Yes, I didn't even realize we had been on the phone. Been on this for an hour. I thought it was just 30 minutes. That time flies when you're having fun. I'm glad I got to do this. I hope you guys have me back on. Whenever you want, at any point. I'd be more than happy to do it. And probably one of the more fun spots I've had on radio or a podcast in a while.
That's what I'm talking about.
We appreciate. Mark it down, Brett.
Yeah,
mark it down.
I already wrote it down. Yeah, look, Shea,
if they start losing, though, don't call me.
No, I'll just text you like random gifs and shit of like, the dog that's like sitting in the diner that's on fire. I'm just gonna spam you with that until you block me.
I like the guy where you're standing next to his friend, the peace sign, and then he just disappears. That's going to be me from the show.
Yeah, look, Shea, we would love to come to Baton Rouge and sit down in person for an hour or two and just, really get after it. I think this was a lot of fun for us. We hope you had a good time. Look, for the people out there, there's no one better in the business than Shea Dixon at what he does. Go 247, 24/7, however you want to call it. Just as great content. We're going to eventually get a pot of gold little promo code out of Shea for this thing. Sign up for 247, promo code pot of gold, give you Shea Dixon's LSU Bama tickets.
Greatest of all time, the godfather of recruiting news, the godfather of everything LSU. Shea, we had a blast. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Hey, I appreciate the kind words, honestly, and you guys are great. I'm a listener. I have been start, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shea.
Thanks,
have a good one.
All right, we're back after such a fun interview with Shea Dixon. We hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for us. I know it was maybe a little scattered, and we went all over the place, recruiting, LSU, and then all of a sudden curb your enthusiasm. But we had a blast. Shea is a great dude. We can't wait to do more stuff with him. It was a lot of fun. Mike, is it time for a La Tech preview in 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
Maybe 5. So, listen, guys, we know we do the pregame pod, but we had a curveball segment thrown in there, reference to curb your enthusiasm there. But, yeah, we had Shea Dixon on. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a blast. We plan on having him back many more times to come. But let's see. La Tech coming up this Saturday. I think it's a 6 o'clock kick in Death Valley. Hopefully we have a little bit more of a polished game than we saw against Southeastern. But listen, this is a team that's a little better than Southeastern in my opinion. They have an explosive offense. They are led by wide receiver Jamar Smith. Very quick dude. Got a 65% completion rating. Honestly, look, Skip Holtz is a great coach. The last time we saw Tech in here was Derek Dooley before the pants. Yeah. And that was a tight game. Speaking of tight games, man, they held Arkansas to a 21-20 victory. Arkansas beat them 21-20 in 2016. South Carolina edged them 17-16 last year. This is a team that can sneak up on you and score points. I don't anticipate that happening. They have an incredible playmaker in Amik Robertson, a freshman All-American last year out of Thibodeau. He's got a lot to prove. He's going to want to be out there ball hawking, smacking people around. Honestly, I think LSU's keys to success and keys to what we should be looking at and working on is a D-line rotation. I think the young guys need to be in there a little more. We need to see more of Alexander, Shelvin, Farrell. I think we need to give our starters a little bit of a break, get them used to that rotation. I'm anxious to see Todd Harris as he fills in for John Battle the first half of the game. And I also would love to see Thad Moss and these tight ends expand into this passing game. Instead of just being an addition to the offensive line, let's throw the ball around. My player of the game on offense, I'm going to go with an explosion from our young wide receivers. I'm going to go with Terrace Marshall is going to make a name for himself against La Tech. Defensively, I'm going to go... Man, I'm going to spitball here. I haven't even thought about this yet. I'm going to go with Michael Divinity. I think he's got a good game off the edge. I've got a 41-14 victory for LSU.
Yeah, I think that was a good job of breaking down La Tech. La Tech's a team that's nowhere near as talented as LSU. Just, up and down the board. But, they're a good program. They're moving in the right direction. All that kind of fun stuff. This is a game that LSU could sleepwalk and still win by, 14, 17 points, something like that. But, yeah, I would like to see LSU come out, be more aggressive, work on a few things, keep practicing that line because, man, if the offensive line can make jumps like this throughout the season and keep getting better at this pace, all of a sudden it's one of the best position groups we have on the team. So, yeah, player of the game, I'm just going to say I'm going to go with Chris Curry on offense. I think he's going to get a lot more touches this game, which means he'll probably get 2, and Hilaire will end up getting more of the other ones. On defense, I'm going to go with another guy that's not a starter, that's probably going to play a lot. I think Micah Baskerville is a guy that got a little bit of a taste of the in-game action, and I think this is a game that he's going to just make a bunch of tackles and kind of fill that Devin White, that Jacob Phillips role, and just look really solid out there. So, I mean, I'm excited for the game. I think LSU probably wins this game in the 38-10 range. Did I miss something? Is there anything else we need to cover for the La Tech?
No, I think that's it, guys. We look forward to coming back in here, doing a post-game pod sometime over the weekend, maybe Monday, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Maybe even Saturday night. We'll see. But, guys, stay tuned. Thank you. Guys, leave some more reviews. Rate and review us on iTunes. Hit us up on Twitter. Guys, we love you guys. We'll see you later. Over and out.
Love you guys.